event, the second part of the event. My name is Miriam Salamaka, and I am the director of the National Network for Translation. So, welcome on my on behalf of the network. It is very pleasing to see so many of you today. It's also very nice to have this joint event with our sister network. I must say I wondered about the gender of the network, my sister network, the National Network for Interpreting. A couple of housekeeping data. The first one is that a questionnaire will be circulated for feedback on the event. So please do try to complete it and leave it with us when you leave. We aim to finish at 5 o'clock, but if you have to leave earlier, of course, hope you enjoy the second part of the event. And our next speaker is Nata Hadju from the ICTY.
Okay, first of all, I would like to ask you whether you can hear me. And secondly, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me here to speak. And they've asked me to speak about being an interpreter for an international criminal court. And they've also asked me to do that in less than 10 minutes, so it's going to be a rushed affair, I'm sorry to say. Okay, just a couple of words about myself. My name is Nata, I'm from Croatia, and I'm currently a staff interpreter at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, which has a much longer name, but this is what we like to call it, or ICTY, if you're really rushed. I used to be a freelance interpreter, but unfortunately I never got to go to Montego Bay or to Luxembourg, so I just went to The Hague and Brussels, so now I live in The Hague for my sins. Okay, so let's get started and see if this works. Okay, interpreting at the ICTY. I'm first going to say a few words about the institution itself, since I assume that you're not so familiar with it. And also to know that perhaps you think this might not be so useful to you as the previous presentations, but I think you have to think again, because international criminal justice seems to be a growth industry right now. Because the international community seems to be dead set to, right every wrong on the planet by setting up an ad hoc tribunal to try every warlord that crops up anywhere on the planet. So you might find this useful. Okay, then I'm going to say something about the interpreter's role at the ICTY, about the problems that we face in our work, but also about the good side, and about lessons that can be learned from the 15 years of our experience at this tribunal. That's the full name of the institution. As you can see, it's quite a mouthful. And it was established by the UN Security Council in 1993 to punish and prevent this kind of thing. As I said, okay, this is just a couple of facts and figures. When I first joined the tribunal, it was in 1995, we had one measly accused in custody, and he was a low-level local thug. But he was the only one we had. Now, of course, we went to bigger and better things. We've tried presidents, prime ministers, chiefs of staff, so we're doing fine, I think. We're currently doing 7 trials in 3 courtrooms. I don't know how. Yeah, if you divide, maybe that's because we interpreters are not so good with maths. We've had 161 accused, 57 are convicted. 2 fugitives, including this fine upstanding gentleman. No comment. And now we're in the throes of completion strategy. We have to finish all our trials by 2012, and then after that we're all out of jobs. And so if anyone wants to employ us. Okay. A couple of words about what it really looks like. This is the courtroom 1, the first one that was built. It's a fairly modern affair, and this is where we have the judges, the prosecution, the defense, the accused, and the interpreters. Our legal system is a hybrid of common law and continental. I'm not going to bore you with details. We don't have a jury, which sometimes confuses the American lawyers who come there and then they play for the jury, which is just not there. Because instead of that, we have 3 judges. It's a multilingual courtroom. We have 2 official languages, and the working languages, the most important of these is the Bosnian, Croatian, Serbian. Another mouthful, but there you have it. It's the politically correct way of describing it. Perhaps even more importantly, it's a multicultural courtroom. It's also something that you have to take into account when you interpret in such a context. Because we, the interpreters, are not there only to negotiate linguistic obstacles to communication, but also cultural obstacles to communication, which are, as you are, I'm sure you're aware, there are many. Okay, this is how the interpretation actually works. We do simultaneous interpretation, which is not the usual setup in national courts. Ironically enough, simultaneous interpretation was born at the Nuremberg trials, and then for some reason it was not used in courts that much. But so our institution actually marked the return to simultaneous interpretation in court. And I think it's working because it really speeds up the procedure, and it makes it possible to record all the participants and to have all the full record in all languages that they use. We have 3 or sometimes 4 booths if you have Albanian and Macedonian. Booths work in one direction only. Relay is used when unavoidable, and quite often it's unavoidable. And it is quite interesting that we very often work into our B language. I do most of my work is done into English, which is my B language. And most of our staff come from the former Yugoslavia, and a lot of us work in the English booth. We have 37 staff interpreters, and we employ a lot of freelancers. French and English is a combination that is much in demand there. The staff, well, it's a mixture of experienced conference interpreters, recent graduates from interpreting schools, and people who were trained on the spot. That was my case. I was doing translation work, minding my own business, and then they just plucked me from my desk and put me in the booth and said, now you have to interpret. Okay, so what is our job? If you look at the tasks, or our task as it is described on this slide, which is currently empty, but I'm going to take care of that, you will see that it is actually the exact opposite of what they teach you have to do as a conference interpreter. You're not there to convey the message in the most elegant way possible. You are not there to convey the order of magnitude, to paraphrase, to telescope, or anything of that sort. You are there to interpret every word with complete neutrality, to get the whole message, to translate everything that you hear, interpret everything that you hear, including the most horrible insults. I've never swore so badly in my life. Some of the things made even me blush, I have to say. So you cannot embellish, omit, or edit. And you have to ask for repetition, rephrasing, explanation, and you have to draw attention to your own mistakes by saying interpreter's correction or interpreter's note, we missed the name or the date. So if you have a big ego, I don't think it's a job, because at the end of the day, you really, sometimes you feel that you've not really covered yourself in glory. Okay, so what are the problems that we face? Because of the tasks that were set out on the previous slide, you can imagine that we work under a lot of pressure. People don't really want to really be the best and give it your best. And you also have to know that if you have a language of limited diffusion, you will probably have to do a lot of work from your native language, which is the language of limited diffusion, into one of the working languages of the court, which is most probably going to be English or French. So you will be doing a lot of retour. I don't know how much emphasis is placed on that in your training. I just listed a couple of some of the courts that exist now. One of them is the International Criminal Court. It is the court that is here to stay. The rest are really those ad hoc tribunals that exist over a certain period of time and then they close down and then people start looking for new jobs. ICC also has French and English as official languages, and depending on the cases as they come before it, it will need to recruit interpreters from a variety of languages. Now they have quite a few African languages, and they do have a very good in-house training program, so they're getting ready. Their chief of linguistic services used to work for the ICTY, and she obviously realized that a good training program is very, very useful. How am I doing? Okay, so if you ever wanted to ask about the meaning of life and all that kind of stuff, now's your chance. This is my email address, and this is the website. You will find lots of interesting information there apart from the images that I used. We also have live feed from the courtrooms there, so if you're interested in hearing what it sounds like, you can maybe just click on it and see what you make of it.